All right, so we're live now. Just doing my normal tweeting stuff out.
Well, you have to, you know.
You have to. Keeps the people engaged, you know?
Yep.
So, any news in the sports world outside of Mizzou that we could chat about before we really start?
Well, I mean, not really. I think Major League Baseball off season is underway. You think the Cardinals are going to make a splash, or is it going to be a deal where we finish second again and go sign
No.
someone for like $15 million?
Are there any really old pitchers that were good 6 years ago that we could pay $19 million to?
There is Sonny Gray, who is 33 or 34. He just had a really good year, but this is what I think the ownership front office, what they really like is he was asked about his priorities in free agency, and he said that being close to Nashville is a higher priority than his contract, than the amount of money on his contract.
$7.
And I think that is, music to John Mozeliak and the DeWitt's ears, because they're sitting there saying, "Oh shoot! So instead of paying you 20, we could pay you 16, and you're going to come here instead of go to wherever else."
Seattle.
So he can be close to Nashville, and they'll pocket the $2 million a year instead of just going out and getting somebody that's going to mow folks down. But that's my conspiracy theory.
Maybe they'll get one of those Japanese guys that they sent Nolan Arenado over there for.
They need to. I tell you what, Joe, it's a lot easier to spend other people's money.
Right.
When you start talking about hiring or signing players, it's a lot easier to spend the money when you're not the one that has to write the check. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. So, all right. Well, let's just go ahead and jump in. Hey, everybody. This is Joe Langworthy and Thomas Wolfel with episode 35 of Tailgate Talk, a 6Com Sports podcast. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. I have a couple basketball games that have happened since the last time we chatted. Might have been a football game that happened, and have a football game to talk about. So, what are your thoughts on the weekend in Mizzou sports, Thomas?
It started off rough, obviously. Friday night, I obviously was hopeful that didn't lag into Saturday, and it didn't. I will say there wasn't even really much of a football game on Saturday. It was one team out there with a running back that looked like he was running practice reps, running on air, and then you had I guess Tennessee showed up and they were on the field at some point in time, maybe. I don't know for sure. It was the most dominant performance I've seen for Mizzou against a top 15 team since I've become a fan. So that was a lot of fun. And then obviously, I think was it Monday night was a game against SIUE. So
yeah,
the Cougars are from basically the town I grew up in, and there's been a lot going on.
Yeah. So, if anybody is joining us live, if you have questions, feel free to send them to us. I think if you can type in just on Facebook, you can type in your question, or on YouTube, or tweet at us. I have Twitter open, so if you tweet at us, I'll see that as well. So make sure to send us your questions, and we'll try to get those answered. But so let's start off just talking about basketball a little bit. Like Thomas mentioned, Mizzou played Memphis on Friday. Not a great game, not a great showing from the correctly colored Tigers. But it is what it is. I think we were talking in my section. Memphis is a very experienced team. They are, have a lot of transfers. That kid that I think he was at Alabama, I think he's like a ninth year player. They have a couple, graduate students on their team, 3 or 4 seniors, couple juniors, and then like 3 freshmen. And so that's a team that has a lot of experience that, is going to be able to weather the storm a little bit better than a team like Mizzou, that, frankly, without Connor Vanover and without a healthy John Tanji, isn't super experienced. I mean, we have some experienced guys, but our true freshmen are playing a few more minutes than Memphis's, and that was the thing is we kind of punched them in the mouth that first half, or at least the first 15 minutes, and then they came right back. They didn't stay on the mat, so to speak. So, and we weren't able to answer once they got hot, and that's going to happen. And I think I've seen a lot of people being really down on this team because of that. But what you got to remember is even last year we weren't playing teams this good. We didn't play a team that was as good as Memphis until we played Kansas.
Yeah, and that went very poorly.
But I mean, we were playing. I think we played Penn and we played Southern Indiana or something like that, and we didn't beat them by much. So it wasn't impressive wins against joke of a competition at the beginning of the year. This year we've stepped up in competition a lot earlier, and my dad wants me to say Memphis plural of or the possessive of Memphis again, because I guess I didn't pronounce it correctly. So.
Well, sorry. Mark just needs to go. Mark needs to go grab a bourbon.
Mark needs to
relax.
Call in, and he needs to tell us how to pronounce it.
If he came here for grammar, he's in the wrong place.
Right.
That's for sure.
What a jokester. He told me he was eating dinner, so I don't know what he's doing. Well, I asked him if he wanted to buy me and my wife dinner after the podcast, and he said no. He was already eating.
Not very nice.
But
that's not very nice. But yeah, it was. I mean, look, you take a look. I think I wrote down that.
Here's an evergreen statement from Mark on the screen.
He has no idea. Yeah, that's something he's been used to saying.
He never knows anything. Sorry.
But anyway, last year I think the other one was SEMO. We had 3 different games early in the year where we won by single digits against the directional schools that weren't very good. So, and I mean, again, we've got a lot of transfers, so it's going to take time for the guys coming in to learn the system, but also B, it's going to take time for Dennis Gates to figure out who should be on the court and who shouldn't be on the court. And I think that's just as much a piece of it as anything. You saw SIUE, and really we made a run when we went small and just got up and down the court. I think we had Butler and Robinson in, 2 freshmen, and East, and we're getting to the basket and we're running up and down the court. So it's going to take some time to get that figured out, I think. And until he gets a couple recruiting classes under his belt where he's recruiting and retaining kids and they're playing the same system every year and they get used to it, we're probably going to have slow starts to the season. And you hope it doesn't come back to bite us this year, starting with Memphis in game 2. And then we've got a Big Ten opponent tomorrow. But, the one thing I'm keeping an eye on, and the frustrating part for me, and I think something that Coach Gates is going to have to figure out over time is, and part of that might just be getting better players too, but the big stat for me against Memphis, there were 2 numbers here, 11 for 35, and the other one's 5 of 38. Memphis on 35 misses got 11 offensive rebounds. Missouri on 38 misses got 5 offensive rebounds. So in other words, Memphis got an offensive rebound, got a second chance on a third of their misses, whereas Mizzou got a second chance on I think 13% of their misses. And if you're going to play the way that we played last year, and I think he wants to play this year, you're going to have nights where you're just not knocking down threes.
Right.
And you got to find another way to win. And that typically is going to be play better defense, and then you got to rebound. I think I took a look last year in Mizzou. If they scored 65 or fewer points, they were 1-9, or 1-8 maybe. Whereas, Miami, who was a Final Four Power 5 team, they were 3-2 in their games where they scored 65 or fewer points. So I just think the next evolution is have fewer games where you're scoring 65 or fewer points by getting better talent, and then B, have that talent find new ways to win other than just, hey, we're going to score 90 points and beat you that way. So we'll get there, but those are just kind of my thoughts and where they're at
I think that
in his second year.
I did see a stat, I think I sent it to you, that there was some defensive metric, and again, I'm not a basketball stat guru, so I don't even really understand what it was, but some defensive metric that we had only scored as well on in 3 games last year or something, and we've already done that twice in the 3 games that we've played this year. So the defense is already, seemingly improved by the metric standpoint. So, I think to your point about trying to find different ways to win, I think that's what this team is going to have to do. But then also, like you mentioned, offensive rebounds, kind of good segue into discussion topic there with basketball is Connor Vanover, who had the audacity to play in a amateur basketball tournament and got a worse punishment than the team to the west that had an FBI investigation into their cheating.
He should have committed wire fraud.
He should have committed wire fraud. Exactly.
He'd have been in much better shape.
In much better shape, and we would have had him for the Memphis game. But he comes back and is going to be able to make his Mizzou debut tomorrow night. Obviously, he has something that you can't teach in that he is 7'5". So theoretically, he should help with offensive rebounds. Correct?
Yeah, he should. You'd think. I think the big question is how does he fit into an offense that wants to get up and down the court? I think against SIUE, I think you started to see kind of Jordan Butler really start to make a difference in rebounding. I think he's more of a prototypical center that you're going to want in Dennis Gates' system, where he's 7 foot, but he runs like a deer and can get, he moves like a guard, but he's 7 foot tall. Those don't grow on trees, obviously. But I think the big thing for Coach Gates and the Mizzou staff is going to be, you got to find the right balance between wanting to get up and down the court, but then also you've got to make sure you have your best players on the court and you're giving them a chance to be successful too.
And the system fits them.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and lie that I've watched Connor Vanover play a ton of basketball. I haven't. Maybe he can move, but if not, then you're going to have to find ways to get him involved. In a way that normally maybe you wouldn't do with the style of basketball we play.
I think at Oral Roberts last year, he was doing a lot of trailing 3-pointers on transition. So I think that's where he's going to really fit there, at least, which obviously if he's running down the court and setting up the top of the key for a trailing 3, not really going to help you with the offensive rebound in transition. So you're going to have to get that somewhere else. But, I think that there's a mix there where he can be a piece of the transition offense, but then also once it settles down and turns into a half court set, he obviously moves inside and can then help with the.
Yeah. I think, and he's coming at the right time. He's built for Big Ten basketball. That's for sure. They're going to want to turn it into a half court game. So that could be a positive, but like you said at the beginning, people maybe started hitting the panic button already after Memphis. And to me, that's where it's way too early. There's a lot of time to get this thing figured out and head in the right direction.
Right. Exactly. So, that's it for basketball. Let's move on to some football. I'm gonna drop some news on you that you haven't heard. I don't think I told you this. It's gonna shock you. So Saturday morning, I woke up and felt deathly ill, and was running, what do you think, 101-degree fever. And so I didn't actually go to the Mizzou Tennessee game.
You didn't go?
It was the fifth home game I've missed in my lifetime.
Wow.
I woke up. My wife took my temperature, told me it was 101. Said, "Do you need anything?" I said, "I'm hungry." She went and got breakfast. I ate. When she got back, I'd already sent my tickets to my buddy Todd. And from that point after eating, I didn't wake up till the B2 flew basically directly over my house and woke me up, turned the game on and watched it. So yeah, I was not at the Mizzou Tennessee game this weekend. So that was a different experience for me.
For anyone listening, you have to know that Joe would be deathly ill to even consider missing a home football game in person. I mean, that's a total shock. So anyway, hopefully you're feeling better.
I am, but I have this cough that's lingering. I feel great, but the cough is rough. So, oh, thank you. But yeah, so I watched it on TV like the rest of you commoners. So didn't get my free hot dogs from the luxury of the 300 level. So, but yeah, Mizzou won 37-7. It's 37 or it's 36. Did I type that wrong? It's 36, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 36.
36. Yeah, I typed it wrong. Sorry. 36-7. And thanks, Dad. He said, Tigers played so well, he's not allowed at Furrow again.
Hey, that right there is the type of superstition that I'm here for. You might not be able to attend a football game the rest of your life. That's what it sounds like to me.
Hey, I do think they've won every game I've missed. So I don't want to
won 30 national titles by now. If you just,
I don't want to really get into that, but I do think that's true. I do think they've won every single game that I've missed, including one of the games I missed was the 2003 Nebraska game where they broke a 27-year losing streak. So
yeah, I think we might be onto something there. So we might need to pay you not to go. Is that what I'm hearing?
If DRF wants to make that offer to me, I'll listen. But yeah, so 36-7 ended a 4-game losing streak to Tennessee, and I think it's fair to say that Mizzou stood on their business. So
yeah, I did like the post-game comments about the defense. I think you said the defense kicked their ass, and that couldn't have been more true. I mean, after that touchdown pass, it was totally locked down from then on. So I mean, that game, we got off. I thought, oh man, we're gonna be wishing that we scored more than 3 points on these first 2 drives where we were fairly dominant, but then we just continued to dominate every drive and obviously put more points on the board. And
yeah,
I mean, that was impressive. I really liked, if anybody hasn't seen the video that Mizzou put out today,
the mini movie,
the little mini movie. I think it's got a little clip in there with Cody Schrader, and they told him, hey, you need 20 yards to break the Mizzou record. And he says, what did he say? Something along the lines of,
this team isn't built on breaking records.
Right. This team isn't built on individual records. And Drinkwitz in the locker room telling the team that kind of choked up a little bit. And I think that kind of senior or elder leadership between him and, obviously Cook. And then I think on the defensive side, Robinson is a big piece of that. I think that has really, really been a huge part of the success they've had. And every time I think, we're due for a letdown, they've not done it. So hopefully it continues. But
right.
It was really impressive to hear him say that. I mean, that is a selfless player for sure.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say too, especially about the defense, is that was one of the most dominating performances I've seen, especially given that they've scored 150 points on us combined the last couple games. not
And that's
literally,
the
but
third
close enough. And it's the
third best
lowest
rushing
amount.
offense in the country.
Right. Yeah. Third best rushing offense in the country. The lowest point total ever under Josh Heupel at Tennessee. And I'll say too, those of you that were at the game, I don't know if you really can appreciate this, but that touchdown that they scored, it was a 42-yard pass or whatever. One, it stayed. I mean, you could appreciate it when you were at the game. It stayed in the air forever. He just threw it up and the guy ran under it. And two, he made a heck of a catch. Like the dude put his body on the line, literally was out for the rest of the game after he caught it.
Right.
And made a heck of a catch to keep that hand under. As my dad just said, that touchdown was an absolute prayer. I mean, he just threw it up and it was just, crazy.
He went and made a play on it.
He went and made a play on it. I mean, I think it was it Abrams Drain that was all over the guy. It wasn't bad coverage. It was just a play. And you take that one play away, I'm not sure they score.
I don't know they do either.
I don't think they were.
I think that was that second or third down, and I mean they didn't really come close after that.
Right, they didn't. After that, they didn't come close. And obviously we don't know what would have happened on that drive, but who knows?
Yeah, I agree with you.
As a prayer of a throw, and it just worked out for him that one time.
And I think we kind of said last week that they needed to slow down the run and make Milton beat you with his arm. And I never in my wildest dreams would I thought that they would have shut down the run like they did. I mean, they couldn't gain any yardage to the point where the only way they were going to score on us was if Joe Milton slung the ball around. And in no world is that ever going to happen. He's just not. That's just not the game he plays. So, I mean, that was absolutely, considering now LSU's offense is much, much better than Tennessee's, I think. But, if you think about kind of that little stretch there where our defense struggled a little bit, and then compare it to Tennessee, that Tennessee game, I mean, the defense has gotten much, much better over the last 2 to 3 weeks to the point where, I mean, if you can go into a game against Tennessee and only need 10 points to win, then you're in good shape. So hopefully they continue to head in that right direction. And if they do, I mean, Tennessee's offense is much better than either of the last two teams we play. So, that was honestly, it was wild to watch. Everybody was dominant.
Yeah, I mean, we want to talk about dominating. You mentioned it already, but Cody Schrader, I mean, 205 yards rushing, 116 receiving, had a touchdown. First SEC player ever to go for 200 yards rushing and 100 yards receiving in the same game, which of course was then immediately overshadowed by Jaden Daniels doing something no college football player has ever done.
Like 600 yards of offense or whatever.
Right. Have 200 yards rushing and 300 yards passing in the same game and whatever. I think Cody's is more impressive, but they didn't ask me. But really big deal. I mean, Cody is obviously playing out of his mind this year, has 1,100 yards to lead the SEC. Obviously, it's a great story being from the Harvard of the Midwest for his first couple games or first couple years and transferring. And we've all heard the story that apparently Drink didn't even look at film of the kid before he came here. He just kind of let him walk on as a favor to a booster. And so, and I'm not saying that as a knock against Drink. I'm saying that as a praise of Cody. It's how far away he was. He didn't have anything. It wasn't like Drink saw it and thought, oh yeah, this is a diamond in the rough. I'm going to make him good. Drink just let him play and just let him, dress out on the team for practice, thinking he's going to be our, tackling dummy. And Cody put in the work and has now made himself something, which is just super impressive. And, I don't know where we'd be without him this year.
Yeah.
So
and I think too, you have to mention obviously with that performance, the big uglies up front. I mean, coming into the year, that was a huge question mark, and especially the left side of the offensive line. But I mean, really, you're starting to see it too on the right side. They're creating holes for him that you or I could probably find a way to run through. I mean,
I don't know. You haven't seen me run recently. I don't know. It'll be
but
rough.
I mean, you get the point. I mean, even against Georgia, they run up for 100 yards, I think, or roughly he runs for 100 yards. And when I was, there watching that game, he's the left side of the offensive line. They created space, and he wasn't getting touched until after he got past the line of scrimmage. And then obviously he's somebody that doesn't fall backwards. So, I think his success obviously speaks a lot to him, but I think too it's shown how much of a leap forward the offensive line has taken this year. They were absolutely a liability last year, and I don't know if you could say the strength of the offense, but I mean, they've been extremely successful and have really turned it around.
Right.
On their own right, for sure.
Yeah. And then I think one of my favorite plays of the game was that Luther touchdown, just because I think Tennessee's game plan, and I don't know this for sure, but I think Tennessee's game plan coming in was somebody other than Luther is going to have to beat us. We're going to shut Luther down, which was fine with Mizzou because I think they were kind of planning on using Luther as a decoy anyways, because he's clearly not 100%.
No, he's injured.
And to then just go ahead and say, haha, we're going to do it anyways and score with Luther, I think it was just kind of that much more of an exclamation point on the win. Kind of an FU to Tennessee and their game plan. And I mean, it was a great play. I mean, it was shows what Luther can do. Even when he's hurt, he gets the ball in space. You never know. I mean, there were guys over there. It wasn't like he was green grass ahead of him. There was guys over there and just nobody could touch him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, they definitely obviously you could tell with the timeout with no time left on the field goal and then the comments after the game that Drinkwitz was there was a little more going into this game than just it being a normal Saturday against Tennessee, obviously with how they ran the score up on us last year. And, I'm all for saying, hey, if you can't stop us, then that's your problem. But I mean, it was very clear they were the intent there was to absolutely run up the score as much as possible. And I think that Drinkwitz never forgot that. And when you see something like that with Burton, and I think that's not a coincidence. They're sitting there saying, all right, like, you can't stop us. We're this much better than you. And that was just the case. But I mean, heck, even Luther Burden, the 5-star kid that is kind of the big man on campus, is carrying his running back off the field when he has a big performance. So,
I mean, that was one of my favorite parts of the mini movie. I don't know if you paid attention to it, but at halftime, it's Luther and Mookie sitting there just very casually talking about he's going to break records. Talking about how many yards Cody has. And it's like, I think that's fantastic. I mean, that just shows they're good teammates, and they, they were super excited about what he had going. And they were like, let's just feed the guy that's being successful. Let's not worry about our yards. Let's get him more. So again, I think.
And I think too, not to get too far ahead, we still have 2 games left and hopefully a fun bowl game, but that's a culture that, if somebody young like Luther Burden, who's probably the best player on the team, sees that and sees how the older guys act and acts like them, that's going to carry forward to future teams. So that's, a culture that will last, I think.
Right. Exactly. So, So, and then obviously just got to mention, just punctuated again by the pick 6 by Dalen Carnell. I feel like we can't not mention that. Great play. Just another fantastic play by Dalen, and really excited that he has to come back for another year, basically, because we're losing everybody else in the secondary, it seems. And I think I think you and I both have been really excited about him for a while. And so he's going to be the focal point of the defense next year, it seems like, or at least the defensive backfield.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think Rakestraw probably is a TBD in terms of whether or not he comes back. But having him in the secondary come back, obviously he was he played half the snaps last year. Maybe it was for the number of snaps he played, our most productive guy on last year's defense, which was good. He's really starting to play well at the right time this year, and obviously with the pick six was kind of a reward for how good he's been recently. So,
right,
like you said, having him back, having him as a leader of the defense, just like we expected him to be good this year, I think you kind of hope next year he can take that big next step and kind of assert himself as the leader of the defense.
Right. Yeah. So overall, obviously, just fantastic game, huge win, whole lot of momentum. I've seen several people say that it was a 3-hour infomercial for the University of Missouri on national television. Fantastic. And obviously it moved us up to number 9 in the college football playoff poll, which apparently is the only thing that's relevant now. Because I had to dig to find what we were in the AP poll and the coaches poll. And I don't really mean dig, but it wasn't just clearly obvious anywhere. I had to actually do Google searches and multiple things and click on different links, and maybe I was doing it wrong, but only thing people care about is that college football playoff poll. It's what ESPN shows. It's what Mizzou shows on everything now, and we are a top 10 team. So, really cool. I think it's very much a Mizzou thing that we're gonna have this year. We're probably gonna end 6th in the college football playoff poll and not be able to make the playoff because it's not 12 teams until next year.
Right. Yeah, I think I mentioned this a week or two ago. That's one of the most Missouri things possible is to be in what would be the playoff, but you're there a year early. So no, that's not to say they can't have another good year next year, obviously, but it does you kind of think about how much. I mean, just imagine how much fun it would be to have a home game, the first round of the playoffs at Faroe. I mean, that would be an electric atmosphere. You could get a warm, a school from a warm climate come up to Faroe in December. You'd have a chance.
Right. Exactly. So, but it is what it is. I'll take a New Year's Six bowl if we can get there. But
got to win 2 more.
Got to win 2 more. So, do have Florida coming in this next weekend. Let's go ahead and move on talking about them, previewing them. 6:30 game, ESPN, primetime, marquee game. I don't know what's the ABC game. Do you know? I was going to look. I didn't even check the schedule other than us. But
that's a good question. I'm going to guess. I think LSU has yet to play Alabama, haven't they? Or did they?
Yeah, but aren't they this? Wouldn't that be the CBS game?
That'd probably be the CBS game. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought. Scores. Yeah, okay, let me see. Texas, Iowa State's on Fox. Oh, Washington, Oregon State is the 6:30 ABC game. So that'll be the main competition. That's 5 versus 11. So, but either way, big game. National television again. Going to be a lot of eyeballs on us. And I think Florida is they're a good team. I think they're better. I think it's hard to say if they're better than their record or if they just overperformed, but they came in to the season and I think overperformed even from expectations. I don't think people really thought they were going to be any good coming into the year. I know I didn't. And they started 5-2. They had that relatively close loss to Utah to start the season, and then lost to Kentucky. I think they got beat pretty good by Kentucky.
They did,
by 20 or so. But then they beat Tennessee and they beat South Carolina, and then they had some blood donors. I don't even know who they played to get to 5-2. And I think they were ranked at one point. I don't know that for a fact, but I remember, if I remember correctly, they were. I think there was even one point where they were ranked like 25th, and it was kind of like, why isn't Mizzou ranked 25th? Like they're better. Everybody knows they're better than Florida,
Here we are.
Nobody asked me. But yeah, since then they've lost 3 straight. Georgia and LSU, which can't say much about that because we've lost to them too.
Yeah.
But then they've lost to Arkansas as well, which I think is Florida Arkansas's only SEC win at this point?
Yes. Yeah,
So,
they lost 7-3 to Mississippi State, and so obviously
right.
Arkansas has not been very good. But yeah, I mean, Florida, they had kind of an interesting early. I think first off, I think Vegas had them at 5.5 wins over under to start the season, so they're kind of right at that number.
Yeah.
And then with us and Florida State, obviously those are two difficult games for them. But they kind of started off the season a little up and down. They beat Tennessee, who's obviously a solid team at home. Like you said, I think Kentucky, the Kentucky running back ran for like 280 yards, and they just got destroyed by Kentucky. So it's kind of like couldn't figure out what in the world was going on down in Gainesville. But then the last 3 weeks, like you said, it's been downhill. So, if they're a very beatable team, I think they are also a team that if you get ahead of early, they will shut things down. So, I think that's going to be kind of one of the big keys for us is doing that. And the other thing too is if you look at the games they have won, they're games that they were either ahead early or were very much in the game early, and then they were able to kind of turn on their run game late and win games. They are not capable of coming back from big deficits. That's just not how their team is built.
Yeah. They kind of have a two-headed monster at running back. I think both their running backs have about 650 yards, somewhere in that range. And that's Trevor Etienne, who I believe is the brother of the Clemson kid, right?
Yep.
Who's now in
I think at Jacksonville. He's very good running back. Yeah.
And then Montrell Johnson Jr. I think they call him Trell. I think it's Trevor and Trell. Kind of clever. Works out. Fun wordplay. But yeah, so 2 good running backs, and then, but I don't know a ton about them. I don't know if they're different styles or if they just both happen to get carries. And have you watched any other?
I haven't watched a ton of them. I know I watched parts of the Utah game, and they didn't have much of a rush game. That was just the deal where they got down by a couple scores and had to throw the ball.
Right.
And if we can get to that point where, say you're in the third quarter up by 14 points and they have to start slinging the ball around, then we should be in pretty good shape. Their quarterback, Mertz, I think, Graham Mertz, right?
Graham Mertz, yeah.
Was a big transfer out of Wisconsin, and he's a very good game manager, but he's, at least to this point, not been somebody that's going to go out there and win on the game. So,
right. His stats are a little deceiving because, they haven't been good, but his stats, I mean, he's 247 for 337 overall, which is 73% completion percentage. Pretty solid. 10 years ago, that would have been otherworldly completion percentage, but
right.
2,720 yards passing, 18 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Like, those are pretty good stats. But I think, like you said, he's just kind of managing the game. He's not taking it over. So yeah, he throws for, almost 300 yards a game, 270, 300 yards a game, but
they're also down big in a lot of games.
They're down big in a lot of games, throwing a lot, or, or they're playing a blood donor and he's throwing a lot and getting, yards after catch from receivers. So they really only have one receiver that seems to be, a number one kind of guy, which is Ricky Pearsall. 62 receptions, 876 yards, 4 touchdowns. Solid. I mean, gonna have to watch him. Gonna have to have Rakestraw or KAD shut him down. But
from a passing game perspective, he almost single-handedly beat South Carolina. He's kind of their one guy that, like you said, is probably at least to some extent, an NFL wide receiver. So he's going to definitely be somebody you got to watch. I mean, their pass game is good enough to. They're probably better than Tennessee's from a just a pure being able to complete passes and pick up some yardage. Not as explosive, and so it's a little bit of a different. It's going to be a different game plan for us, I'm sure, defensively.
Right.
The guy can't run quite as much, the quarterback, but
right.
So they're capable. They aren't explosive really, or they haven't been explosive to this point in any facet of the offense. And so if you can stop the run like we did this past week, we're going to be in really good shape.
Yeah, and I think like you said, it's probably a more balanced passing attack, and I think that's kind of the gist I get from Florida, is that it's just going to be a more balanced offense completely. They're just going to be more. I mean, it's not Heupel running the offense, so it's going to be more of a traditional, run on first down, stay ahead of the sticks, pass on second down, play action on third down, that kind of thing. And they have been sacked, or their quarterbacks have been sacked 31 times. So, they've shown some weakness there. That's not terrible, but it's not great either. So expect to be able to get some pressure, and hopefully that can kind of disrupt things and
and I think part of that too I think says something about the lack of mobility of the quarterback. Their offensive line's not fantastic, and he's you don't have to worry about when we got to Daniels, that didn't mean anything because he could just take off running. If you get to Graham Mertz before he throws the ball, then you're going to be in really good shape, because chances are you're going to be able to run him down and get him down behind the line of scrimmage. Right.
Yeah. So then flip side, I did see that their defense is allowing 160 rushing yards a game, 385 yards total. So if my math is correct, that's 225 yards passing a game. So, rushing seems to be the weakness of the defense. So you look at it and you think, okay, Cody Schrader had the game of his life last week. Let's just do it again this next week. You think that's what's going to happen, or you think? What do you think?
I think it's kind of tough to tell. I mean, so they beat Tennessee very similar to the way we did it. Obviously, we did it better, but they were able to stop Tennessee's run game eventually, and that's how they beat them. But also, as we saw, Tennessee is very much extremely dependent on being able to run the ball. When they saw someone like Kentucky, who at least at the time people thought was a little more balanced, they weren't able to load the box, and then that's when you get a running back to 280 yards rushing against them. So I think it kind of depends on what they do. If they stack the box and say we're not letting Cody Schrader beat you, I think they'll probably be capable of at least keeping him at bay. But something that we have that very few teams that they've played so far have is kind of a balanced attack, to where we can either obviously we can run the ball, or we've got a couple of different receivers that can make plays consistently. So I think we'll be able to run the ball, but if they say we're stopping the run, really we should be able to pass on them too, because at that point they'll be selling out so hard to stop the run game that we're going to have receivers get open for sure.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things, and I think in my mind, I'm hoping it's because Kirby Moore has helped with this and helped our offensive game plan be able to react to what the defense gives us. Because you and I talked about it last week going into the Tennessee game. Tennessee's secondary was their weakness on defense. We were expecting big things from Burden, Weiss, Brett Norfleet, and I think Tennessee knew that, and so didn't load the box. Cheated back. Cheated so that they could help their secondary, and I don't mean literally cheat. Obviously, I just mean did things to help their own secondary, and left things open up front. And Mizzou capitalized on that. So like you said, I think it'll all depend on what Florida gives us. If Florida says, okay, we know Cody Schrader's really good, we're going to not give you anything other than 7-man boxes the whole time. Okay, we'll run that play to Theo Weiss that we ran like 9 times at the end of the Georgia game.
Yeah,
and just
I think you're exactly right.
Go down the field. So so that's kind of it for talking about Florida within that game. I do think we need to talk about, it is senior day. So just talking about the Mizzou side of things, it is senior day. There's a lot of seniors walking. Some notable guys being Cody Schrader, obviously. Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper are both going to walk. And both of them do actually have another year if they want it. So be interesting to see. Tyron Hopper, Chris Abrams-Drain, Rakestraw, Jalen Carlisle, Joseph Charleston, Harrison Mevis, Niles Gaddy, all guys that are walking that have an extra year if they want it. So they're going to walk. They're currently planning on not being here next year, but maybe Drink comes up with some NIL stuff for them. Maybe keeps them around another year. I think outside of Hopper, Rakestraw, and Drain, Chris Abrams-Drain, I think those 3 guys are going to play in the league. The two corners are going to play in the league, and Tyron Hopper might play in the league, but he'll get drafted and have a shot. The other guys, they're borderline prospects, I feel like. So maybe we could convince them. If you get a couple $100,000 for them, it's not going to hurt their,
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, and that's
career chances.
That's really what brought a number of the guys back to this year's team is NIL. Mm-hmm. They were all kind of fringe guys. You even take a look at a guy like Rakestraw who had a couple injuries this year. There's a chance that the NFL scouts sit there and say, yeah, you're, borderline.
I saw something on him at round 1 grade. And I was
well, if he's round 1 grade, then he's gone. But if he gets something that's, round 3 or 4 and he has a chance to come back to improve it,
right.
Then obviously that's when NIL can make a difference. But, I think you've mentioned it. We've talked about it, and we'll probably talk about it here, is Christian Williams is not walking, right?
Mm-hmm. And Chuck Hicks is also not walking.
Chuck Hicks. But, when I think about, for me personally, when you take a look at next year's team, and if I could pick one person and one person only to come back, kind of the list we've talked about, Williams is probably number 1, just because, one, it's a position that we have no returning production coming back to.
Mm-hmm.
The top 4 guys, important. Right? The top 4 guys can graduate. Now, that's not to say we don't have talent, right? I think Lane can potentially be a player. Obviously, I think Gracial was a big time recruit. There's no reason why he can't be productive, but returning 3 snaps total this year at a defensive tackle position, I think, is difficult. And then, obviously in the secondary, we've got guys that have at least seen snaps. Marcus Clark has a couple interceptions. Norwood, so Dre Norwood. So I think we have options there. But for me, the maybe just as big a name is the person that isn't walking, and obviously Christian Williams, and like you said, Chuck Hicks, who has been very good for us the last couple of games. But times have changed. It used to be if you walked across the stage, you were done. But nowadays, with COVID and with the COVID year and the redshirt years and stuff, first off, it's tough to remember even who has eligibility left. And like you said, now with NIL, if you have an extra year of eligibility, there's no guarantee you're going to make an NFL roster. Why not come back and play and work towards a grad degree and earn a little bit of money while you're doing it? Right.
Exactly. So just be, really excited for all those guys, but also it's going to be kind of bittersweet on some of them when they walk out, and it's kind of like, I'm clapping for you, but really hope I get to do this again next year and clap for you and actually
Please
be
come back.
sincerely excited for you. But yeah, so senior day is always fun. I think it's a big deal for those kids for sure. And, cool to see them get their rock and hopefully get to see them do that after a win.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And something too that I think people lost sight of, and I worked in college athletics, and it was kind of one of the reasons why I liked doing it was, college football has created more first-time college graduates or first-time college graduates in terms of like family lineage than any other organization in history. And so there's going to be kids walking across that stage who have parents and grandparents that never had that option. And so that really is a cool aspect of college athletics and something that I think has kind of taken a back seat recently, but it's still something to think about.
But yeah, I don't know this for a fact, but I think from what it sounds like, our academic progress and all that has been really good. So I am assuming most of these kids are not only walking for senior day, but they're going to be graduating or very close to graduating either in December or next spring. So really cool. And obviously every school has it, but a really good tradition, a really cool tradition. And so really excited for that. But so let's wrap things up, but just want to mention a few things. Award season has started kind of wrapping up. Some semifinalists and finalists have been named. I don't really get the difference between finalists and semifinalists in some of these. I think they're using the same name for the same thing on a couple of them, but Brady Cook was named a semifinalist this week for the Davey O'Brien Award, which if you've played NCAA football, you'll remember is the best quarterback award, which, obviously he's not going to win. Jaden Daniels is going to win that, or, the kid from Michigan, who, has went through a lot this year. They're America's team.
He's known exactly what play's coming. I'll tell you that.
They're America's team. They've done they've went through a lot of adversity this year, and we all need to be supportive of Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines. So, but either way, really cool that Brady Cook got named as semifinals for that. Our boy Cody Schrader named a finalist for the Burlsworth Award, which I hope they present that to him at the Arkansas game. That would just be the best, since that's named for a former Arkansas walk-on. It is best former walk-on. He should win that. I think there's not a better story. One of the other nominees is Drake Stoops, which I just think is ridiculous because I'm pretty sure Drake Stoops had other D1 offers. He just happened to walk on at Oklahoma, when I'm pretty sure Bob Stoops' contract probably had a thing saying your kids can go to Oklahoma for free. So he walked on, but come on, give me a break. But don't get me started on that one. Offensive line named a finalist for the Joe Moore Award, which I guess is I never heard of it, but best offensive line in the country. I guess they just give that as a group. Probably won't win that. I'm sure one of the playoff teams will win that, but still cool to be honored. Still cool to see that, we're getting some recognition, and that can only help in recruiting. When you're talking to, some big, ugly high school kid, come play for a unit that knows what they're doing. And then DN coach Kevin Peoples named a Broyles Award finalist. There are 57 finalists for the Broyles Award. So,
to be fair, there's probably 600 coaches. So,
well, I know, but there's that many DNs.
Oh, there's way more coaches than DNs. Absolutely.
Well, you're right, but there's a lot of DNs, and they only named 7 finalists for that or whatever. But I think it's just like half of the teams get at least one coach named. But it is cool that Kevin Peoples gets honored, at least in that way. Again, because there's 57 finalists, can't really expect to win that. The odds aren't great. But I think what he has done, taking a converted D tackle and a D2 or FCS transfer and really ratcheting up the pressure that this team produced. It hasn't gone unnoticed, and I think he's done really, really well.
Well, last year was his first year, and there was a massive step forward last year with the production of last year's defensive ends. And then, like you said, I think Robinson has enough talent to where, it helps.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
I say converted D tackle, and that's a little tongue in cheek because he is obviously very, very good.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to be a good coach when you got that type of talent on the roster.
Right.
But he's deserving of it, that's for sure. So, my big question, honestly, is, where is there a list of like top new podcasts? Because if there is, I'm sure we are absolutely nowhere near it.
Yeah. There is one. It's put out by Six Column Sports, and we are actually on it. So, top new Mizzou podcast presented by Six Column Sports. We have Tailgate Talk, a Six Column Sports podcast. That's the list.
There you go.
I don't know of any other new. There's more established podcasts that are way better, but
it's going to be awkward when we come in second.
Right.
It's going to be awkward when we come in second for that one.
Yeah, we if past award ceremonies have been any indication, I'm definitely getting second. So I don't know about you, but I don't have any gold trophies at my house when I was a kid. I had a lot of silver, but I don't know. My lack of talent caught up to me, I guess. But all right, well, anything else before we sign off?
You gotta give me a final score of the game Saturday.
Final score of the game Saturday.
And I want to know, do we beat Minnesota? Those are my two questions. Final score and do we beat Minnesota?
I'll say we do beat Minnesota. I think we should. I think Minnesota is not supposed to be very good. It is a true road game, so obviously that doesn't make it easy. But I think we go in there and win. I don't know enough about Minnesota to know what the score is going to be, if we're going to play it like a Big Ten game and win, 35-32, or if we're going to play it like an SEC game and win 85-70. But, I think Sean East has been impressive, and I doubt they have anybody quick enough to keep up with him. So that's my prediction for tomorrow, is that we win. And then Saturday, I'll say 35-17. I think we win by 20.
Gotcha. I'm going to say 28-17, and I do think we beat Minnesota handily. I think it ends up being a 10 or 15 point game on the road. So
I like it. And then I do think we play somebody Sunday. I saw in the tickets that I had tickets for Sunday's basketball game, but I don't know who it is. But I'm sure we'll win that one too.
I would hope.
Yeah. So, so that's it for us this week. I don't know when we'll record next week, since we got Thanksgiving and all that. But we'll get it figured out, and we'll have another one next week before we play the Pigs. And so if you don't hear from us before then, have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see you out there at the game this weekend. MIZ.
ZOU.